China made a film about cloning Bruce Lee. Okay, here's the deal. Sci-fi is a genre unto itself, but it's a genre that intersects with all kinds of other genres, subgenres, film trends, yada yada. There's clearly plenty of sci-fi horror, sci-fi action, sci-fi comedy. And then there's also some curious places that sci-fi shows up. Case in point, today's share, a Brucesploitation film from 1980. The original Chinese, Cantonese title is something I'll add here in text. The romanized Cantonese title is Shan Wei San Meng Long. The most common English title is The Clones of Bruce Lee. Very straightforward. Bizarrely enough, there is another title that sometimes shows up. Death Penalty on 3 Robots. That alternate title doesn't make any sense with the film's contents. It makes me wonder if it was chosen by someone who couldn't be bothered to actually give the film a watch. My habit is to normally lay out a plot summary before diving into other info, and I'll do that here as well. Partly I like the consistency, but partly because this film is wild. And I think it's useful to lay some groundwork about what is going on in the film before digging into the everything around this film's existence. The film opens with Bruce Lee being rushed to the hospital on July 20th, 1973. Sidebar for the unaware, this is the actual date that Bruce Lee was found unresponsive and rushed to the hospital. In the film, he is brought in for emergency assistance, and the medical staff are trying to save him, but his heart stops beating. Then a man is seen calling and asking for a Professor Lucas. The man calling says that he is Colin from SBI, the Special Branch of Investigations. He says that it's urgent that he meet with Professor Lucas and that it's a matter of security. However, he does say that he can share this concerns Bruce Lee. Cut right to watching Colin and Lucas walking into the hospital. They burst right into the hospital room where the medical staff are still present with Bruce Lee. Colin reaches out to presumably the lead doctor in the room and lets him know that he is Colin from the SBI and that he had spoken to the doctor earlier. Colin introduces Professor Lucas to this doctor and then asks how long it has been since Bruce Lee died. The doctor replies that it's only been about 20 minutes. Colin says he's sorry and then pivots immediately to Professor Lucas. He tells Lucas that it's all on him now and he hopes that their plan will work. Lucas asks the doctor for an empty syringe, which the doctor does hand over. While the doctor and the rest of the medical staff look on confused, Lucas proceeds to extract something from Bruce Lee's body out of sight. Lucas holds up the now full syringe and looks satisfied, maybe even gleeful. We cut to an evening news report that is starting to play on a television. The reporter shares that Bruce Lee has died of a heart attack after he had been earlier rushed to the hospital in a coma. The news cycles between different reporters and stations, all of them expounding on Bruce Lee's death, his life, his legacy, all of these facets around such a famous individual. In an eerie parallel to real events, there are mentions in the reports of fans being horrified and dismayed at Bruce Lee's death, and even suspecting foul play, perhaps assassination. The reports do then go on to say that doctors and other experts ruled out those possibilities, and that it was indeed a heart attack that killed him. There is clips of what looks to be genuine news footage from that time frame of crowds of people and their responses to the death of Bruce Lee. And then we have the infamous scene of the open casket. Later on, Colin and Professor Lucas are meeting up again. Colin declares that the clones of Bruce Lee will be quite the scientific achievement. He asks Professor Lucas if he's really sure he can successfully create 3 clones. Professor Lucas declares that he can, and then we see a shot of 3 men in cold stasis. All right, that is all the plot summary I'm willing to give. It will not ruin the film to give you this. Plenty to see after that. So, not a surprise, but as far as the type of sci-fi that the clones of Bruce Lee is, definitely action/martial arts. When I looked up the film further, the clones were actors who had been making careers of emulating Bruce Lee's fighting style. The film enjoys having goofy and funny moments in it, and there's also a surprising amount of nudity. The nudity itself isn't really sexual. It just seems to be almost a gratuitous add-in. My guess is that that's tied into the time and place that the film is being made. Pretty tame, though. For instance, partway through the film, there are several women having a nude dance party on the beach in Thailand. They're just grooving to the radio they brought along. Further in, there's an even odder scene of a woman dancing naked for a man for relaxation purposes, but it's not sexy. She's just swaying, and there's a couple other completely nude women clapping along, sort of cheering her on. This film is goofy and not good, and yet it's very hard to tear your eyes away from, because where is it going next? Why did the SBI want to clone Bruce Lee specifically? We never find out. It's never explained. They end up using the clones for covert missions, but there is no benefit to looking like Bruce Lee for any of these missions. The fighting skills do come in handy, but the clones had to be trained for those, so at the end of the day, anybody could have undertaken that training and then been useful during these missions. Regardless, they have a lot of fun having very lengthy fight scenes, really past the point of them being entertaining. But they really wanted to go hard for that in this film. As far as the sci-fi elements of the film, definitely the cloning process. The clones are formed as full adults, which is a very convenient way to avoid dealing with any of the difficulties of gestation and the aging process to get to a point where they're useful. The clones know that they are clones, and again, they did need the training to then emulate the skills that Bruce Lee had. So this is a pretty straightforward approach to cloning. There's no thought of copying and imprinting any of Bruce Lee's memories or experiences into these men. There is an additional bit of sci-fi element in one of the missions that the clones are sent on. It involves a brilliant but mad scientist who's involved in drug trafficking. The scientist develops these drugs out of his own lab, but when the clones arrive to deal with him, he also has other inventions that are more unique. Unique and also stupefying. He can convert humans to bronze, but they retain the entire form of a human. We certainly can't do what the scientist does, but why the heck would anyone want that? It makes no sense, But by this point in the film, that is already a very familiar experience, so you just keep rolling with it. All right, I need to deep dive into the background of this film because it is absolutely wild. Prior to watching The Clones of Bruce Lee and then looking into it further, I only knew a bit about any of what could lead to this film being conceived. Most people have heard of Bruce Lee, whether they've watched any of his films or not. For a snapshot, Bruce Lee was a Hong Kong American martial artist, and he was originally involved in a few US TV shows and projects. Bruce Lee did have a decent part in the TV show The Green Hornet, but he grew dissatisfied with the limits to the career that he could be having in the US. Not many studios that are wanting to cast a non-white actor in any role. He ended up moving back to Hong Kong after a few years. He had no idea that The Green Hornet was actually a very popular TV show over there, and he had instant recognition there. Thanks to his unexpected fame, he ended up making 5 films through the Hong Kong film industry. Bruce Lee gained an international following, and he's still regarded as one of the top martial artists in cinema. When he unexpectedly died at the age of 32, it went worldwide, the news of his death. Film industries didn't want to lose the wave of success that his films were starting to generate. Pretty quickly after his death, there were a number of martial arts actors who were sought out for the resemblance to Bruce Lee. They were cast to take advantage of this wave of interest in the style of martial art films that Bruce Lee had been making and were already growing popular. The casting of these men was not subtle in any way. They usually ended up with acting names that reflected that very resemblance. I had a couple off to the side: Bruce Chen, Lee Bruce, Bruce Lei. And I know there were other ones that not only reference Bruce Lee as his film name, his stage name, but then even his more private original name. They had no compunction about also referring to that one as well. At least 13, maybe more, of these Bruce Lee mimic actors were eventually having careers being cast in films across multiple film industries. There was the Hong Kong film industry, of course, but some of the others were, let's see, Taiwan, South Korea, Philippines, Thailand, India, France, Italy, and US. All of these different film industries were making films that ended up feeding into what became known as the Brucesploitation genre. Well, subgenre. With that background of Bruce Lee's impact, this film tapped into sci-fi to bring even more Bruce Lee style presence to a film. The Clones of Bruce Lee came out in 1980, 7 years after his actual death. All 3 clones in the film are Bruce Lee imitator actors who had already been making films with their stage names for a few years by this point, and so were well known. Additionally, a 4th Bruce Lee imitator actor was also cast, but in the role of an FBI agent in Thailand. And 2 of the clones that are sent to a mission in that area end up meeting up with that FBI agent. I pulled up a rundown of these 4 actors that were cast in this film. The first one is Dragon Lee, real name Moon Kyung-suk, and also known as Kyo Rong in Korean cinema. He played clone Bruce Lee 1. Yes, they called them Bruce Lee 1, Bruce Lee 2, Bruce Lee 3. The actual importance of their well-being and identities, clearly not important. Anyway, for Dragon Lee, he was a South Korean actor and practitioner of Taekwondo and Hapkido. He made a number of Hong Kong films as Dragon Lee or also Bruce Lee, as well as Filipino-style exploitation films. Bruce Lee, real name Wong Qinlong or Huang Qinlong. He played Bruce Lee 2 and is a Burmese Taiwanese actor who made a number of films in Hong Kong as either Bruce Lee or Little Dragon. Little Dragon is meant to reference his resemblance to Bruce Lee as well. Number 3, Bruce Lee, real name Cheng Il-do. Hopefully that's a good pronunciation. He played Bruce Lee 3 and was a South Korean actor and practitioner of Tang Soo-do. And then finally, Bruce Tai. He played Chuk Thing Sing, the SBI agent in Thailand that meets Bruce Lee 2 and Bruce Lee 3. I couldn't find any significant information about him, but the inference is that he is likely a Thai actor and seems to have made other films, although they're not easy to track down. Even with the presence of 4 of these Bruce Lee imitator actors, it does not actually make the record for the number of Bruce Lee knockoffs that are in a Brucesploitation film. That honor would seem to go to the movie Enter Three Dragons, which from what I could tell has 6 of these Bruce Lee imitation actors. With a film all about cloning Bruce Lee, it would have been really epic to see as many clones as there were imitators, but they didn't go that far. As far as my own thoughts about this film, it was a spur-of-the-moment watch for me. I was looking into sci-fi films about cloning, and this one came up randomly. Seeing the title, I dropped everything and found an uploaded, dubbed version of the movie that was on YouTube and watched it that night. Let me be clear, this is not a good film. The story is all over the place, and the plot makes no sense. It feels like a very flimsy narrative with the sole purpose of putting quite a few of these Bruce Lee imitator actors in the same film. Curiously, this film has the distinction of being the only film that for 2 of these imitator actors, let's see, it was Bruce Lee and Dragon Lee. This film has the only actual filmed fight sequence for the 2 of them. Whoever was the fight choreographer clearly went overboard during the filming. The fight training and the fight scenes really drag on. And maybe it's just to show off the prowess of these imitator actors in emulating Bruce Lee's fighting style, but it gets old quick. I did watch it knowing it had terrible reviews, and so it did not let me down. It's terrible, but it's the kind of terrible that can be really fun to complain and groan over. If that kind of watch experience appeals to you, it sometimes does for me. The Clones of Bruce Lee is streaming on a few services. Let's see, Night Flight Plus, Eternal Family, Amazon Prime, IndiePix, Hoopla, Plex, and Fossum. And it can also be rented or bought on Amazon Prime and Fandango at Home. Also, for the time being at least, there is an uploaded version on YouTube that's been dubbed in English with English subtitles. And the censorship black boxes for the nudity in this uploaded version are hilarious. I don't know that I can exactly recommend it, but it's also incredibly entertaining. As far as what's coming out next, I decided for my own fun just to do a bit of a deep dive on the Krish franchise out of India. Because my birthday's coming up, and I really love those movies. This won't be the only film that I share that's just too weird not to share, but it's launching that, so you can expect to see more of this kind of thing come out in the future as well. Happily, I do not have clones of Bruce Lee coming after me, so I'll see you soon.